This is the Senior Beat. I'm Duff Ryder. Welcome to a lively discussion of business trends and cultural shifts that affect the aging population. Over the past few years, we've seen an explosion of new products, new ideas, and new forms of expression that help define the changing lifestyles of today's older Americans. At the Senior Beat, you'll meet artists, entrepreneurs, musicians, and business leaders who are active participants in this reimagining of the senior experience. Our guest today, John Luna, is one of those extraordinary individuals.
Thanks, Duff. Happy to be here.
You and I have worked together more than once, so I know firsthand that you've had a very interesting professional life within the hearing industry. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
You know, I've got close to 30 years experience in hearing healthcare and innovative devices, from the clinical side and scientific side all the way through the recent changes to direct-to-consumer and over-the-counter products. So I've got a vast experience, and I've launched a lot of technologies over the years, and some of them with you.
True enough. True enough. I'd like to kind of jump into pricing here for a second. Traditionally, hearing aids have commanded a premium price when you compare them to other personal electronics. And the high prices have always had an effect on purchase. You know, the result seems to be that the need continues to grow, but actual usage seems to be lagging. And what are your thoughts just in general on hearing aid pricing?
I think it's justified as far as the technology that's available from the lower end to the higher end based on the current channel of distribution. But, you know, things are changing. New modes of delivery of hearing aids have allowed prices to be reduced to consumers. And, you know, what was top technology 2, 3, 4 years ago is now considered lower end technology as more innovative and higher end devices come out. And so the consumers now can receive amazing technology at lower price points.
Okay. Costco's now the biggest hearing aid seller in the country. How have they impacted the consumer shopping experience, let's say, for hearing aids?
Costco has done a great job. I was one of the first vendors at Costco over 26 years ago or so when they started. You know, they've evolved to an organization that has its own training of its professionals, and they have streamlined their operations to deliver, you know, top quality manufacturers, same manufacturers you'd buy in private practice or in general retail, worldwide at, you know, amazing prices for consumers in their membership, you know, as low as $15.99 a pair. Which is the same type of device you would find for $5,000 or $6,000 a pair outside of their warehouses. And, you know, they account for, you know, estimates are between 11 and 14% of the U.S. Sales of hearing aids. So a substantial player next to the VA.
I want to now look at the other side, you know, the big five, the largest hearing aid companies. Do you feel that they have their fingers on the pulse of today's senior? I mean, do they understand the wants and the needs and the frustrations of consumers who have hearing loss, but aren't sure how much they should be paying, who they should trust in evaluating, and then who they should work with in selecting hearing aids or other amplification products?
Well, I think they do. I mean, the big five historically have supported and grown the audiology and hearing instrument specialist side of the distribution channel in the United States and worldwide. So I believe they and their distribution network of audiologists and dispensers have a true understanding of what it takes. And things are going to change and evolve over time. And, you know, we've seen that over the last, 12 months with COVID-19 and the restrictions and some of the shuttering that happened in the industry and the changes in right. overall volume of sales for the big five, as well as, their distribution network. We've seen growth in other aspects, but, ideally they understand their consumer They understand the consumer needs. They have, hearing aids as the solution or cochlear implants as the solution within their arsenals. But I do believe they understand the consumer completely.
We've talked about the Costco side of things. We've talked about the big five, but you've also worked with several of the newer companies like Eargo, for example, that are offering online sales and fitting. Is this the future of hearing aid fitting and sales?
I think it's one aspect of the future.
That's a careful response.
Well, I work with a lot of companies. It is a careful response. I'm a careful person. But having participated in direct-to-consumer sales and over-the-counter PSAP sales, and eventually, over-the-counter hearing aid sales, business models, having some direction and conversations with companies around that. I think that the modality is changing of how a consumer with a mild to moderate hearing loss or perceived hearing loss can purchase and access hearing devices. A lot of that's gone to online, and that direct-to-consumer online purchase through a company like Eargo, as an example, has proven to be successful for that population of consumer. And more consumers are willing to make that purchase directly online now, more so over the last 12 months than they have, previously. So I think baby boomers who were hesitant to purchasing online, even from Amazon.com for, basic household goods, during COVID-19 worldwide, and especially in the US, transitioned to become consumers of online and home delivery. And so they got used to trusting that way of doing things, and it became more familiar to them. So I think those that were hesitant are now more willing to look at it. And I think we've seen a growth. If you look at Eargo's success and their IPO and their growth year over year over the last 12 months, you can see that. And other companies as well have posted, great numbers in that direct-to-consumer space. But at the same time, you see the traditional channel taking a hit. The overall industry down 18%. Some companies down, more than 20, 30% in their overall sales year over year based on COVID-19 and having that brick and mortar retail. So, I think the model proved itself last year that it's viable. And now it's just really going to be up to the consumer, the new consumer, the repurchasing consumer, or those looking for information as to where they go for their first set of hearing aids or their second set of hearing aids.
Right. Yeah, I know from research we did years ago, just in the aging consumer, that there is a segment that we call them do-it-yourselfers that are willing to sort of tinker with things. They are willing to go out on a limb a little bit, and get something like a hearing aid online, understanding that they're going to have to do some work. It's not just going to all land there and they put it in their ears and everything is great. So that's been going on for some time. The next step, though, after direct to consumer is over the counter. And maybe you could talk to us a little bit about the whole, how things look from our over the counter products.
Well, the OTC Act of 2017, the guidelines that the FDA had due last year never came about. And so a year after the bill was signed, there was a guidance, 35-page document, guidance letter sent by multiple agents, multiple professional groups, ADA, AAA, ASHA, and IHS, to provide guidelines around OTC hearing devices and what that might look like to protect consumers, and how to separate them easily from real standard Class 1 hearing aid devices or Class 2 now hearing aid devices versus over-the-counter hearing aid self-fit devices. And so those guidelines have been proposed, but nothing's actually come from the FDA. So there are no over-the-counter hearing aids available. Currently, there's no guidance from the FDA on that, and there's no availability to purchase them in store. But it will happen this year, I believe, in 2021. Elizabeth Warren mentioned back in October that it's on the radar. They're aware they're aware they're past due on their self-imposed deadline, and they will be providing guidance around that. So when that comes out, those hearing devices will be, ideally labeled self-fit over-the-counter hearing aids or hearing devices. Mm-hmm. And that will then be much like we talked about with the direct-to-consumer, in my opinion, where the consumer will have the ability to self-test or somehow screen their hearing so that they can have a more customized fitting of the device for their specific hearing loss needs in that mild to moderate perceived range.
Okay, so they'll be doing,
and the price points will drop down.
Yes, and I think there'll be some understanding that if you're going to get a hearing aid, let's say, at the price that you're going to get it over the counter, that again, you'll have to do some work. And while there'll be basic sort of programming that can be done, it's not the same as a super high-end product where you can really tailor it to the individual's, highs and lows of their lungs.
Yeah, it's not going to be, as thorough of a fitting as as if you've gone to a professional clinic and had it done by a professional who's trained and understands, the medical side of it, and then the hearing aid fitting side of it, and has all the tools to then measure those objectively. But I think there'll be a fudge factor, much like consumer audio is now, with volume controls and ranges. But again, most hearing losses in the mild to moderate range are, slight sloping high frequency hearing losses.
I have to think that over-the-counter products, when they are available, though, that should be a huge boon in a way to the whole industry, because of the fact that traditionally it's getting people to acknowledge they have hearing loss. And then once they acknowledge that, looking into it, and they have no idea how much they cost. And there's oh my gosh, I didn't realize they're so expensive. That in terms of initial trial, it seems to me like this is a big opportunity. And I don't know how the industry, players are feeling about this, if they're nervous or what. So what do you think?
I think they're nervous. There's a couple things happening, kind of the perfect storm going into 2021 to 2025 is you not only have hearing aids, right? And then you've got over-the-counter hearing aids, but you've also got hearables and wearables and these smart earbuds that are, emerging. And they'll also take market share and take that first-time user or the person that doesn't want to wear hearing aids, but that will wear something else in their ear. So, smart earbuds, cosmetics, form factor, and multiple functionality or convergence of technology that isn't just for hearing amplification of speech will all play into that consumer demand. I've seen estimates from analysts and different reports that say there'll be a 30 to 40% increase in smart earbuds sales. There'll be a 20% reduction in hearing aid sales in clinics, and it'll go to online or over the counter. But there's going to be a mix because currently we're underserving the need. Right? There's 44 million people with hearing loss. There's 50 million people with tinnitus. There's, a continued growth in that category. It's not going to get smaller. It's going to actually potentially double worldwide in the next 30 years, the amount of hearing loss and folks that need help. So the market's going to continue to expand, but the consumer is going to have many more choices. And not only choices in devices, whether that's a hearing aid or a smart earbud, but you're also going to have choices in where you purchase it, how it's fit, and it's going to be an interesting time. And I think the winners are going to be the ones that have the technology that outperforms the next in their price category.
Makes sense. So I don't want to dwell on it, but the COVID virus has really changed how we, buy and sell, and that certainly includes hearing aids and services. And what I'd like you to talk about a little bit here is just, the behavioral changes in consumers. Some of these will be permanent, and some won't. If you were looking into the future here a few years, what do you think the model will look like for fitting and selling hearing aids?
I think it's changed forever now to be a telecare model. You go back to Costco as an example. Costco has now announced that you'll need to come in for the first visit and the fitting, and then everything after that is going to be telecare or remote. Eargo has a telecare, telesupport, audiology, and support face-to-face interaction with their app, and that's email, chat, live video like this, and other companies that are out there are in that same telecare space. So consumers maybe had some pushback on that, maybe weren't tech savvy, maybe weren't especially the senior population maybe had a smartphone or had the computer, but didn't typically use FaceTime or Zoom or anything like that until this last year. The last 12 months, it's become the norm. I mean, from holiday gatherings to birthday parties to just checking in where you couldn't go to visit. And in the stay-at-home orders, you had COVID-19 change the face of how we do business and how we interact.
So, John, you've run your own business. You've been CEO of a number of companies. You've participated in some really innovative product launches. And now we're looking at, the whole hearing aids in a COVID world, in a slightly post-COVID world. Where are you going to be in all of this? Do you have any idea yet? Or
I'll continue to be part of that innovation and change. My love is helping people, and the beauty about hearing devices is you can help people and in a matter of seconds change a 10, 15, 20, 50-year experience and turn them back on. So whatever I do and whatever companies I'll participate with, it's always got the end user and the results and the use of the product in mind. And no company can ever be successful with a bad product. And so I think the ones that are going to win, like I said, are going to be the ones that have the innovative products that really, change people's lives and, help people live a better life. So
we're talking today with John Luna, one of the real innovators in the hearing industry. And this is the Senior Beat. John, to close here, I think people would like to perhaps know a little bit more about what you're doing or how to get a hold of you, and what would be the best way for someone to find out more about what John Luna's up to?
Yeah, just look for me on LinkedIn and message me that way to connect. It's on John R. Luna. Don't forget the R, because if you don't, it's somebody else.
Okay. All right, John. Well, thank you so much. I enjoyed this a lot. And I just think that, it's just really interesting to talk to somebody who's had the depth and the breadth of experience that you've had. So thanks again, and we'll be talking.
Thanks, Steph. I appreciate it.